This region is facing a lot of unique challenges. It's a rural region, but it's also got an industrial base, and we want to make sure that Allegheny Highlands aren't left behind, not only when it comes to Richmond policy, but also Washington policy. So I was in Richmond twice as long as I've been in Washington. Right. So what's happening in Richmond is at the forefront of my mind and concern, and I hope you're going to have some of those Richmond policymakers on to talk about what changes are being discussed in Richmond. It's a little disturbing to hear some of the policies being advocated because, for example, repealing our Right to Work Act would have a very, very disastrous effect on this local economy, on the potential.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Gene Mundy. I'm the host of The Value Proposition, where we bring together business leaders, civic leaders, and citizens here from our community, the Allegheny Highlands. Today, we're joined by Congressman Ben Cline of the 6th District, representing our hometown. Ben, nice to have you with us.
Gene, good to be with you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. So, as we were talking, this is kind of like our first podcast here, and
it's exciting.
Little getting used to.
There you go.
You're our flagship.
Oh man, no pressure.
Flagship episode. So yeah, no pressure at all, right? We're going to start at the top and kind of work our way.
It's only up from here.
Well, I guess it depends on whose chair you're in, right? So in getting ready for this, we put together a few questions and something, some things that we think impact our community, and we'd like to hear from your perspective as a congressman, and watching the community here grow and develop, and how federal resources could be leveraged and to assist in our own economic development. Mm-hmm. So I got a few questions.
Yeah.
All right. First question is, and I'm going to read it so we can stay on track. It said, from your position, what current House committees or initiatives you're involved with are the most relevant to economic growth or rural revitalization for our community?
Great question. To start, this region is facing a lot of unique challenges. It's a rural region, but it's also got an industrial base, and we want to make sure that Allegheny Highlands aren't left behind, not only when it comes to Richmond policy, but also Washington policy. So I was in Richmond twice as long as I've been in Washington. Right. So what's happening in Richmond is at the forefront of my mind and concern, and I hope you're going to have some of those Richmond policymakers on to talk about what changes are being discussed in Richmond. It's a little disturbing to hear some of the policies being advocated because, for example, repealing our Right to Work Act would have a very, very disastrous effect on this local economy, on the potential for the Smurfit plant to continue to succeed and grow. And we want to make sure that industry views Covington and the Allegheny Highlands as a place they want to come. So giving tax incentives and other kinds of opportunities for this area to recruit businesses to come is going to be real important. So those incentives at the state level are important, but at the federal level we can do the same thing. So tax incentives are important for businesses to locate, making sure, however, that a lot of the more destructive policies for economic growth are undone from the last administration is equally important. Mm-hmm. So some of the environmental regulations that have been put on during the Biden administration, previous administrations, we are in the process of undoing. We still have, even with the Trump administration, rules that are forthcoming out of the Energy Department and of the EPA that are harmful to industrial growth and development. And so blocking those proposed rules is a step that the House can do and has done on several occasions. So the House as a whole has voted, and I voted to stop these regulations from going forward. But then At the same time, our individual committees are also advancing legislation, starting with the big, beautiful bill we got done this summer that is going to not only help businesses with expensing and things like that they can do on their taxes to help save money and reinvest in their communities and in their businesses, because the small business community is vital to Covington and to the Allegheny Highlands, but also for families, because we are dealing with a population that is older and needs special assistance that way. So providing an additional tax break for seniors in the big, beautiful bill amount to about $6,000 worth of Social Security income. Mm-hmm. So when the president advocated for no tax on Social Security, we got that ball rolling. We weren't able to bite the whole bite in the first bill, but we're going to continue to work on that. And then other ways that we're helping can discuss down the line. But appropriations is a committee I'm on, to answer your question, that does involve a lot of direct spending policy. And then Ways and Means, which is the tax committee, deals with tax policy. Environmental regulations will go through the Energy and Commerce Committee. And then there are a number of other interior, dealing with parks and forest areas, agriculture, dealing with farmers. Mm-hmm. So there are a number of committees in Congress that impact the Allegheny Highlands that are working on policies that help rural America.
Great. You mentioned the state state leaders, and just kind of give you an idea. We hope to bring Delegate Terry Austin in. We've reached out to him.
Good.
And Senator Chris Head.
Good.
So we kind of, as we talked about, starting at the federal level and working our way down, we hope that we can get them in the next couple of weeks and kind of build on the conversation, particularly, not to get it, turn this into a political conversation, but, certainly, recent elections, and, that's going to have some repercussions that I think we all, as small business folks, need to be, thinking about. How does that affect my business, or how does that affect our community of businesses in Covington? And certainly the environmental piece is a real big question of how does that impact Smurfit and a lot of folks' jobs.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when we think about Covington and the role of small communities like Covington and Allegheny Highlands, how does that fit into the broader, maybe Virginia broader economic strategy? We see areas like Richmond, Fairfax, Norfolk, get a lot of attention. They have a lot of bigger urban areas typically end up with more funding. How do we leverage our position here to attract those federal investments?
Well, it involves making sure that the administration focuses on areas like ours, the rural parts of all of the states. Mm-hmm. So the rural areas of Virginia, the rural areas of Pennsylvania, New York, South Carolina, North Carolina. So all the different states, regardless of where you are, this administration, more than the previous one, focused on how do we get those additional resources to areas that are harder hit by a lot of these the new economic changes that are happening. There are a lot of data centers up in Northern Virginia. We don't want data centers here, but we want jobs here. Right. So how do we get more jobs here, supporting small businesses and helping families who may be living paycheck to paycheck make it through? So when you've got a Main Street community like this one, it's got restaurants, got minimum wage jobs. So when you look at the bill we passed this summer that removes taxes on tips, removes taxes on overtime up to a certain level, you're dealing with those who are earning minimum wage, those who are in the service economy, and hopefully you're going to see a savings of around $1,200, $1,300 a year, not only for wait staff or service staff who are earning tips, but also overtime pay amounting to around $1,300 a year. That is going to be, you're going to see tax reductions for that as well. So making sure that people are stable when they're here in this community is going to help bring employers to the community, help small businesses expand and use the expensing deduction that we added to the bill so that they can reinvest in equipment. Big employers like Smurfit Westrock are going to be able to reinvest in equipment and in employees and grow here rather than invest in plants in other states.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a concern, right? When you think about the new regulations potentially that we may expect from a change of, the administration changing in Richmond with a new with Spanberger being elected. When companies like Westrock look at the increased cost to upgrade environmental standards, right to work, you start thinking, okay, do they make that investment, or does that business look at other areas where they may have a more, what's the right word I'm looking for?
Favorable
environment like South Carolina, Tennessee, what have you, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is not their only plant, right? And so they've got a decision to make when the economy is growing, when they have opportunities to expand. They're looking at Covington, they're looking at South Carolina or wherever else they've got plants and saying, where are we going to get the most bang for our buck?
Right.
And we've got economic development in the state, Go Virginia, which is an entity that's set up to try and target expansion opportunities and funnel limited state resources and match federal resources to get those investments made here.
Right.
And that's a good thing to have, but we've got to have the pot. I mean, at the end of the day, you can't just throw money at a company when you have bad underlying policies.
Right.
And that's why we've got to, I have a working relationship with Governor-elect Spanberger. We were both in the Problem Solvers Caucus together. It's a bipartisan caucus made up of half Republican and half Democrat. And there are a lot of problems that we haven't been able to solve in Washington. But doesn't mean we don't sit down and try. And behind the scenes, there's a lot of conversations going on. And so I have that working relationship. I will be using that to talk to her and her people to try and make sure that this area is not forgotten.
Right.
She doesn't come from this area, but she has visited here. So I'm hopeful that we can remind her, and working with Terry and working with Chris Head, we'll be able to, as a team, get that attention and get those resources sent out here.
Yeah. One of the successes we currently see here locally is the expansion of broadband. And when we start thinking about remote workforce, lower cost of living, attracting folks to come in to our community that maybe don't want to live in Fairfax or they don't want to live in Norfolk, et cetera. So, one of the questions we have is, it remains a lifeline for rural business, education, and healthcare. What federal programs or funding streams should our local government and private providers be looking for to reach full coverage? Because we're not there yet, but we're getting there.
Right. And a lot of those incentives are being pursued privately by the companies. And so working with those companies to try and target this area and come to this area, let them know the market is here and want to invest. And that's another thing where, if you give families and individuals more financial security, they're going to have those resources to participate in the marketplace for broadband and start to buy those services. Businesses can take advantage of them, and that's going to bring those employers into the area. But they also look to the governments, whether it's state or federal or local, for incentives to come here. And so, there have been some state incentives for broadband, laying fiber federally. There have been bills and funding streams that have made fiber more available in rural areas. And we're at a point now where not only are we successfully bringing fiber to rural areas like this one, but technology is advancing at such a rate where you've got folks like Starlink with broadband over satellite that are kind of bypassing the old fiber routes and providing faster, more accessible to the not just the end of the road, but beyond the top of the mountain. You can get internet access now, high-speed internet access. And so making sure that those funding streams are available to the next generation of technology and not just limited to the existing providers of fiber, that's something we've got to do as well.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I had not thought about broadband over satellite. Certainly here we're very familiar with Loomis, which is now, I guess, T-Mobile. So, as a guy who's a remote worker, I work a lot with companies in the GovCon space out of Northern Virginia. I can live here versus, being up near the Beltway. I've got great connectivity. I can certainly do everything I can here that I could do there. And, when it comes to meetings or events, it's not that long to get there to attend, in-person events. So there's a lot of folks like me here that I think are enjoying the small town community and, still engaged in dealing with, companies outside this area.
Yeah, you've got to make sure that when you're dealing with the federal funding streams, that they're approaching it in a technology-neutral way. The last Secretary of Commerce, Gina Raimondo, under the Biden administration, was very focused on fiber and laying fiber, and quite frankly, they were ignoring a large segment of what was developing in the industry and could have helped a lot more people during that time. And I think the Trump administration is open to those new technologies and is pursuing a technology-neutral approach where everybody's in, everybody's playing, and that just makes it more exciting for areas like ours where you not only are going to get the last mile delivered, but you're going to get the entire footprint of the region delivered with broadband.
Great. So we talked about this a little earlier. Resilience, infrastructure grants. How do we work with the federal government to be more attractive to receiving those grants versus, again, a larger urban area?
Well, when the bureaucracy looks at localities for grants, they're looking at a variety of different standards that they want to meet and a checklist that they have to run. And so you want stability in a region. You want to make sure that the population is stable. Right. And the Allegheny Highlands is stable, but it's not growing. And we need to get that growth back. How do you bring dollars in that are going to help the economy grow? So that's where the state policies are going to come into play. And if West Rock is hiring and starts up that line that has been shut down for a year now, I think, then that will send a message to others that are going to come in and create jobs. I can help with the grants that are existing, but we're in a time of flux right now in the federal government where the administration wants to test those grants that are in existence to make sure they are working and not just being frittered away and not creating jobs and this last administration and administrations before it actually have just spent taxpayer dollars on grants that really did nothing to grow the economy. Were really just boondoggles. And you can see some of the worst examples are in foreign aid, but a lot of them are domestic as well. What we have to do is to test them, put them to the test, make sure they work, make sure they create jobs on the whole. When you get a good report back, then you put more money into them. If they don't, then that money needs to come back to Congress. Congress needs to take control of its spending and we need to look in our districts and pick those locations where that money could do the most good. I know from serving as representative for the 6th District for the last 7 years, that this area does not keep up with economic growth rates of the rest of the district. So you go up to Winchester, it's growing leaps and bounds, and people are moving out from Northern Virginia. You go down to Roanoke, and they've got the biotech industry growing. But here we are not growing as fast. And so I know if I were given access to federal funds that were no longer being administered by bureaucracy departments through grants, that I could focus on this area better through direct appropriations. We're not at that point yet because we're still in the phase where the administration's saying this grant works, this grant doesn't. But hopefully in the next few years, you're going to be able to see more from my office and from Congress in investing targeted dollars directly into areas like this one to help incentivize growth.
So that's a great point, and I think a great opportunity for us as a community. So how would we work with you? You know, obviously we're not at the point, but kind of give me an idea of what could we do as a community to help you.
Well, you guys have a great EDA here, an Economic Development Association, Chamber of Commerce here, that's very active and very involved in the community, that hears things before I do. Mm-hmm. I get here as often as I can. I live down in Botetourt, so it's an easy trip. Right. And so I can see for myself some areas that might be ripe for growth, but I'm not here every day, and so I need to be in close contact with those entities that are here locally. And it doesn't even have to be your local chamber. If it's a local business and they're thinking about expanding or growing, if Coochie's wants another location, if there's another business that is looking at putting in next to the truck stop or something like that, that they can contact my office and we can search through a database that we are building of grant opportunities and also appropriations opportunities. So they don't even have to know where to look. They can just call us, and we can kind of be a what I like to say is a traffic cop for the bureaucracy, where even if you don't know if it's a local, state, or federal question, call my office. Closest one from here is probably Roanoke office, but I got one in Stanton too. And so then we can direct you to the entity or the agency, if it's not us, that's going to best be helpful.
I think there's a lot of good ideas. Narrowing down those ideas to what's actionable. And I think there's some great folks in town here, like you mentioned, the Economic Development and the Chamber of Commerce. We've got a super city manager here, Alan Dressler, that certainly, sees those type of opportunities. And, working together, we'd like to, try to help him, help whoever, use this platform to try to promote those new ideas and concepts. So, sir, I know you got a limited amount of time. You got another event going on today.
Got one more question?
Yeah, we'll take another one. Here's one. Tourism and outdoor recreation have become major economic drivers in the Allegheny Highlands. I don't know if over the last month or so, we just had an announcement. Chamber of Commerce did this year about $360,000, I think,
That's awesome.
in economic development related to tourism. So the question is, what role do federal tourism, public lands, or transportation policies play in supporting local economies like ours?
Well, federal public lands are critical to the economy here throughout the 6th District, and so we want to make sure, first and foremost, those stay open. So not to date the podcast, but we're in the middle of a federal government shutdown, and it's been frustrating for the last 40 days. We've been as they joke, 40 days in the wilderness.
Yes.
And now it looks like there's a glimmer of hope out of the Senate, and hopefully it'll bear out with this podcast when people watch it that we'll have reopened. And the parks have been open, but they've been limited staffed, and so we want to make sure that that gets back so that we can be welcoming to people from all over and who want to come here and who want to partake of, whether it's hiking or fishing or hunting or biking or whatever opportunities they have to enjoy the beauty during the peak leaf season that they have had. And now that it's getting colder, still a lot of opportunities. Yeah,
it's hunting season.
Absolutely.
Got to get in the woods.
Time to get in the woods. But so first and foremost, making sure that we provide resources to our Park Service, to the Parks Department, and that money is available to the states and to the localities, not only for tourism, but also for maintenance, to make sure that they have a good experience when they're in the parks. But then that also extends over into the Main Street community. So you get clothing stores and walkabout outfitters. Tina Miller, who runs that out of Lexington, Rockbridge County, isn't here, but it's she has a great idea for outdoor clothing and stuff that you can use while you're hiking, and those kind of stores thrive in rural communities near parks, near recreation like this, and so making sure that money's available for folks to start up small businesses. If folks want to try their hand at running a business that sells those kinds of things, they'd probably be pretty popular. And you want that coexistence with the park to make sure you get that value add for the local economy.
Well, sir, thank you. I want to say thank you for joining us on our flagship episode. It's been my pleasure to have you here.
Hope I didn't put people to sleep, but
no, I would just offer you the final word if you have anything you'd like to share with your constituents.
Well, it's an honor to represent the 6th District. The Allegheny Highlands are a jewel in the crown of the district and a special place. I grew up in Rockbridge, right next door, so playing sports against local high schools, running track against local high schools is something I treasure, and so I love coming back here. And it's important to me personally to make sure that Allegheny Highlands thrive and economically, and that folks are living here, have great jobs, have a great quality of life. And so whatever I can do to help, please keep in touch with my office. Reach out to my Roanoke office. We're open even when the government shut down. We're still open. And we stand ready to help, and I'll continue to be back on a regular basis and checking in and hopefully watching great things happen.
Thank you for watching The Value Proposition. We'll be looking forward to seeing you the next time.